dreamed vaguely of men. In fact, I was happiest alone in my father's library, a large, fine room on the first floor of our house. My father's library had probably once been a sitting room, but he sat down only to read, and he considered a large library more important than a large living room. He had long since given me free run of his collection. During his absences, I spent hours doing my homework at the mahogany desk or browsing the shelves that lined every wall. I understood later that my father had either half forgotten what was on one of the top shelves, or, more likely, assumed I would never be able to reach it. Late one night, I took down not only a translation of the Kama Sutra, but also a much older volume in an envelope of yellowing papers. I can't say even now what made me pull them down. But the image I saw at the center of the book, the smell of age that rose from it, and my discovery that the papers were personal letters, all caught my attention forcibly. I knew I shouldn't examine my father's private papers, or anyone's, and I was also afraid that Mrs. Clay might suddenly come in to dust the dustless desk. That must have been what made me look over my shoulder at the door. But I couldn't help reading the first paragraph of the topmost letter, holding it for a couple of minutes as I stood near the shelves.
December 12th, 1930. Trinity College, Oxford. My dear and unfortunate successor, it is with regret that I imagine you, whoever you are, reading the account I must put down here. The regret is partly for myself, because I will surely be at least in trouble, maybe dead, or perhaps worse if this is in your hands. But my regret is also for you, my yet unknown friend, because only by someone who needs such vile information will this letter someday be read. If you are not my successor in some other sense, you will soon be my heir. And I feel sorrow at bequeathing to another human being my own perhaps unbelievable experience of evil. Why I myself inherited it, I don't know. But I hope to discover that fact eventually. Perhaps in the course of writing to you, or perhaps in the course of further events.
At this point, my sense of guilt, and something else, too, made me put the letter hastily back in its envelope, but I thought about it all that day and all the next. When my father returned from his latest trip, I looked for an opportunity to ask him about the letters in the strange book. I waited for him to be free, for us to be alone, but he was very busy in those days, and something about what I had found made me hesitate to approach him. Finally, I asked him to take me on his next trip. It was the first time I had kept a secret from him, and the first time I had ever insisted on anything. Reluctantly, my father agreed. He talked with my teachers and with Mrs. Clay, and reminded me that there would be ample time for my homework while he was in meetings. I wasn't surprised. For a diplomat's child, there was always waiting to be done. I packed my navy suitcase, taking my school books and too many pairs of clean knee socks. Instead of leaving the house for school that morning, I departed with my father, walking silently and gladly beside him toward the station. A train carried us to Vienna. My father hated planes, which he said took the travel out of traveling. There we spent one short night in a hotel. Another train took us through the Alps, past all the white and blue heights of our map at home. Outside a dusty yellow station, my father started up our rented car, and I held my breath until we turned in at the gates of a city he'd described to me so many times that I could already see it in my dreams. Autumn comes early to the foot of the Slovenian Alps. Even before September, the abundant harvests are followed by a sudden poignant rain that lasts for days and brings down leaves in the lanes of the villages. Now, in my 50s, I find myself wandering that direction every few years, reliving my first glimpse of the Slovenian countryside. This is old country. Every autumn mellows it a little more in Aeternum, each beginning with the same 3 colors, a green landscape, 2 or 3 yellow leaves falling through a gray afternoon. I suppose the Romans, who left their walls here and their gargantuan arenas to the west on the coast, saw the same autumn and gave the same shiver. When my father's car swung through the gates of the oldest of Julian cities, I hugged myself. For the first time, I'd been struck by the excitement of the traveler who looks history in her subtle face. Because this city is where my story starts, I'll call it Emona, its Roman name, to shield it a little from the sort of tourist who follows doom around with a guidebook. Emona was built on Bronze Age pilings along a river now lined with Art Nouveau architecture. During the next day or two, we would walk past the mayor's mansion, past 17th century townhouses trimmed with silver fleur-de-lis, past the solid golden back of a great market building, its steps leading down to the surface of the water from heavily barred old doors. For centuries, river cargo had been hoisted up at that place to feed the town. And where primitive huts had once proliferated on the shore, sycamores, the European plane tree, now grew to an immense girth above the river walls and dropped curls of bark into the current. Near the market, the city's main square spread out under the heavy sky. Emona, like her sisters to the south, showed flourishes of a chameleon past, Viennese deco along the skyline, great red churches from the Renaissance of its Slavic-speaking Catholics, hunched brown medieval chapels with the British Isles in their features. St. Patrick sent missionaries to this region, bringing the new creed full circle back to its Mediterranean origins, so that the city claims one of the oldest Christian histories in Europe. Here and there an Ottoman element flared in doorways or in a pointed window frame. Next to the market grounds, one little Austrian church sounded its bells for the evening mass. Men and women in blue cotton work coats were moving toward home at the end of the socialist workday, holding umbrellas over their packages. As my father and I drove into the heart of Emona, we crossed the river on a fine old bridge, guarded at each end by green-skinned bronze dragons. "There's the castle," my father said, slowing at the edge of the square and pointing up through a wash of rain. "I know you'll want to see that." I did want to. I stretched and craned until I caught sight of the castle through sodden tree branches, moth-eaten brown towers on a steep hill at the town center. 14th century, my father mused. Or 13th. I'm not good with these medieval ruins, not down to the exact century, but we'll look in the guidebook. Can we walk up there and explore it? We can find out about it after my meetings tomorrow. Those towers don't look as if they'd hold a bird up safely, but you never know. He pulled the car into a parking space near the town hall and helped me out of the passenger side, gallantly, his hand bony in its leather glove. It's a little early to check in at the hotel. Would you like some hot tea? Or we could get a snack at that gastronomia. It's raining harder, he added doubtfully, looking at my wool jacket and skirt. I quickly got out the hooded waterproof cape he'd brought me from England the year before. The train trip from Vienna had taken nearly a day, and I was hungry again, in spite of our lunch in the dining car. But it was not the gastronomia, with its red and blue interior lights gleaming through one dingy window, its waitresses in their navy platform sandals, doubtless, and its sullen picture of Comrade Tito that snared us. As we picked our way through the wet crowd, my father suddenly darted forward. "Here!" I followed at a run, my hood flapping, almost blinding me. He had found the entrance to an Art Nouveau tea-house, a great scrolled window with storks wading across it, bronze doors in the form of 100 water lily stems. The doors closed heavily behind us, and the rain faded to a mist, mere steam on the windows, seen through those silver birds as a blur of water. Amazing this survived the last 30 years. My father was peeling off his London fog. Socialism's not always so kind to its treasures. At a table near the window, we drank tea with lemon, scalding through the thick cups, and ate our way through sardines on buttered white bread, and even a few slices of torta. "We'd better stop there," my father said. I'd lately come to dislike the way he blew on his tea over and over to cool it, and to dread the inevitable moment when he said we should stop eating, stop doing whatever was enjoyable, save room for dinner. Looking at him in his neat tweed jacket and turtleneck, I felt he had denied himself every adventure in life except diplomacy, which consumed him. He would have been happier living a little, I thought. With him, everything was so serious. But I was silent, because I knew he hated my criticism, and I had something to ask. I had to let him finish his tea first, so I leaned back in my chair, just far enough so that my father couldn't tell me to please not slump. Through the silver-mottled window, I could see a wet city, gloomy in the deepening afternoon, and people passing in a rush through horizontal rain. The tea-house, which should have been filled with ladies in long straight gowns of ivory gauze,